The morning it buckled. On July 7th, 2026 at 8 a.m., construction workers inside a 37-story Manhattan skyscraper watched steel columns begin to buckle in front of them. Floors 21 through 26 started caving. They self-evacuated. A frozen zone shut down 5 blocks of Midtown, 1 block from Grand Central Terminal and the Chrysler Building. Bricks fell into the street. Raw video from inside showed crumbling steel columns on the 21st floor. Mayor Zohran Mamdani called it an extremely serious situation. The building remained unstable and continued to move for hours. Long before emergency crews locked down Midtown, 235 East 42nd Street was celebrated as the crown jewel of New York City's post-pandemic office-to-residential boom. Constructed in the 1970s as the global headquarters of pharmaceutical giant Pfizer, the 37-story tower was originally designed by the prominent architecture firm Emery Roth and Sons. In a massive bid to reshape the Midtown skyline, developers Metro Loft and David Warner Real Estate Investments launched a plan to transform the commercial giant into a high-density residential community. The blueprint called for converting the vast office plates into more than 1,600 luxury apartments. Financed by a $720 million construction loan from Madison Realty Capital, the project was the largest office conversion ever attempted in New York history. It represented a high-stakes bet on the future of real estate, watched closely by developers and regulators alike. The structural risk did not stem from the conversion itself, but from a dramatic alteration of the building's original geometry. Built in 1960, the tower featured a classic New York zoning design, a tiered wedding cake shape that tapered as it rose, transferring the heaviest loads to a broad, sturdy base. The residential redesign completely reversed this structure. Engineers planned to widen the upper portion of the tower, adding a horizontal bump out that expanded the floor plates by roughly 18,000 square feet. This massive addition cantilevered outward across 15 upper floors, starting directly above the 23rd floor transition. To maximize space, the developer also planned to construct 4 entirely new floors on top of the existing roof. This design concentrated unprecedented mass onto the narrowest, thinnest section of the aging steel frame. By shifting the load path outward and upward, the new blueprints placed massive physical stress on columns never designed to carry such eccentric weight. When the steel buckled on the 21st floor, the failure trace led directly to 2 columns in the northwest corner. Developer Nathan Berman later admitted that builders put more load on the columns than they could support. The steel columns bent, he stated, because of not having been properly reinforced or having been missed in the reinforcement process. In high-rise construction, missing reinforcements trigger a dangerous chain reaction. When these 2 columns failed to hold the weight of the vertical expansion, the load shifted, forcing adjacent columns to absorb the extra stress and bend under the pressure. While Berman downplayed the buckling as a typical construction mishap, forensic engineers concluded this was an oversight of overloading and reinforcement, not an indictment of the conversion itself. The structural plans required heavy steel plates to be welded to these column flanges, but the physical plates were never installed. This leaves a critical, unresolved question. On New York's largest conversion project, how did inspectors and contractors miss the reinforcement of the very columns holding up the northwest corner? The warning signs began mounting more than a year before the columns buckled. Throughout 2025, the Department of Buildings issued 7 safety violations at 235 East 42nd Street, racking up over $32,000 in fines. In October of that year, an anonymous complaint warned that a large object had plunged through 5 floors, nearly striking a worker. When a city inspector visited the site, they determined no violation was warranted. Meanwhile, a grave injury fall in September 2025 led to an active lawsuit, raising further questions about site conditions. While the developer has characterized the eventual collapse as a localized mishap, these public records paint a different picture. Long before the steel finally gave way in July 2026, a paper trail of complaints and safety penalties had already established a pattern of concern on the city's largest conversion project. The paper trail of responsibility extends to the private companies hired to build and inspect the tower. Northeast Specialist Group, the subcontractor on the steel erection crew, came to the project with a history of safety and labor disputes. In 2020, the firm was involved in a fatal worker accident at another Manhattan site and faced a 2019 wage theft lawsuit from 6 employees. To oversee the structural integrity of the steel and welds, the developer hired Domani Inspection Services. But city records show the Department of Buildings cited Domani 3 times between 2012 and 2017, with infractions including unlicensed concrete testing and a failure to report a facade collapse. Days before the columns buckled, Union picketers gathered on 2nd Avenue holding signs reading "Shame on Metro Loft" and "You get what you pay for," accusing the project managers of cutting corners and paying substandard wages. To halt the progressive sagging of the upper levels, emergency crews immediately installed high-capacity jacks at the tower's weakest points. Workers raced to add temporary steel shoring floor by floor. By Tuesday night, crews had secured 6 floors. By Thursday, engineers stabilized 17 of the 37 floors, with 12 levels still requiring active reinforcement. The structural threat paralyzed the surrounding Midtown neighborhood. The city established a strict frozen zone spanning 1st to 3rd Avenues between 40th and 45th Streets. Police evacuated 7 nearby structures, including a local school and a Hampton Inn, displacing hundreds of residents and students. While these emergency braces successfully arrested the building's movement, city officials cautioned that stabilization was not a cure. The temporary steel only prevented a catastrophic collapse. Actually repairing the structural damage would require rebuilding the entire 15-floor upper segment. With the building temporarily stable, developer Nathan Berman moved to contain the narrative. He dismissed the structural failure as a typical construction mishap, insisting the tower was never at risk of a total collapse. Metro Loft released statements claiming the physical damage affected fewer than 30 of the planned 1,600 apartments. The developer's recovery plan involves tearing down and rebuilding the compromised upper levels, keeping the project on track for its projected early 2027 opening. This confident outlook stands in sharp contrast to the massive forensic investigation unfolding on East 42nd Street. The crisis unfolded during a massive shift in New York real estate. Post-pandemic vacancies flooded the market, accelerating office to residential conversions to a 20-year peak of 5 million square feet in 2025. Although structural engineers characterized the 42nd Street failure as a rare, one-off error, the incident exposes a physical challenge inherent to adaptive reuse. Many of Manhattan's legacy towers, built in the 1960s and 1970s, contain steel frames designed only for lighter commercial loads. Adding heavy residential expansions forces these aging frames to carry massive new weight, testing whether municipal oversight can safely police such extensive structural alterations. The emergency jacks are secured, the frozen zone has cleared, and Midtown traffic has resumed, but the Department of Buildings remains on site. Investigators are now scrutinizing Metro Loft, General Contractor 235 GCLLC, and Domani Inspection Services. Under the city's recovery mandate, the compromised upper floors must be demolished and rebuilt from scratch with a new facade, new concrete slabs, and heavy steel reinforcements. Yet the core mystery remains open. On the largest office conversion in New York history, how did multiple layers of oversight miss the very columns holding up the northwest corner? The emergency stabilization continues, but the forensic investigation remains wide open. As cities rush to convert aging office towers into housing, this disaster exposes systemic risks in oversight. How were critical reinforcements missed on the city's largest conversion? Share your thoughts in the comments.